In our previous lecture, we saw several built-in functions in Python. In today's lecture, we are going to start the exciting journey of defining our own functions. These are called user-defined functions. And before we get too excited and define very complicated functions, I'm first going to introduce you to some ideas for making sure that your functions are well designed. We will do this even for the very simple functions that we will see in this lecture. And you might feel that some of these ideas are not really necessary for functions that are so simple. But I want you to understand these ideas of well-designed functions as early as possible so that you are familiar with them. And next time you see a function that doesn't adhere to these good function design principles, it should kind of hurt you in your tummy a little bit, and you should say, I can improve this. And by the way, that's a very, very important skill out in the real world, because unfortunately, there's a lot of poorly written code that is out there. So the more quickly you can develop these skills of seeing what it means for a function to be well designed, you can contribute very quickly to improving software that is out there. In addition to seeing these simple functions, we will also use this lecture to introduce ourselves to conditional statements. But let's save that for later. Let's start with a simple example. Now, here is a function. It's something that we have seen several times, but let's understand the various parts of a function very carefully. So firstly, we notice that we must start a function with the special keyword def. This is short for define. So we wish to define a function named f, and this function takes one piece of data which we're going to call c. Notice that the def statement ends with this colon. And in Python, you will see that whenever we have a colon, we typically enter and go to the next line, and that next line is indented. It is pushed in. On most IDEs, this indentation will be exactly 4 spaces wide. So we will often see this next statement indented. This is necessary in Python. This is what allows Python to tell us that this statement is inside the body of this function f. Once we have a statement that is indented at the same level as def, that statement is outside the body of function f. So notice that this single statement inside the body of the function begins with a special keyword, return. So this is the simplest type of function we could define, right? It has one parameter, one piece of data. In general, if you have more pieces of data that you need to give to a function, then you will write multiple parameters and you will separate them with commas. You must make sure that your parameters have different names. And then in the simplest functions, you will have a single return statement, and typically this function will return an expression which is parameterized, which means it depends on one or more of the parameters that you gave. So in this case, no matter what value c we provide, we will calculate and return 1.8 times that value c plus 32. Now, once we have defined this function, if we asked in the REPL what is type of f, it tells us it is an object from the class function. This is a user-defined function. It is not a built-in function. We have just created this function f. And now that we have created it, we can call it. We can give it different pieces of data. Now, here you can see I have called it with 2 pieces of data. The same function f is being called firstly with the value 100 and later with the value 0. So the actual data that we give this function, we call this the arguments of the function. We say that here we are calling the function f with the argument 100. And later we will see exactly how this is done. We will see that this parameter is initialized with the argument 100 when we are making this function call. Later, when we are making this function call, the same parameter c will be initialized with the argument 0. So these two terms, parameter and argument, have slightly different meanings. Now, unfortunately, when you talk to programmers, you will see that they often confuse these terms. Many people use arguments and parameters interchangeably. And all of us are guilty of this. You might find that in some of the later videos, I myself make this error, this confusion. I'm giving you the formal definitions here. Parameters are whatever we put inside these brackets when we are defining the function. These are placeholders that will actually hold data when we call this function later. So c is a placeholder. It's the parameter that will hold the actual argument that is passed. For example, the argument 100 or later the argument 0. But sometimes you will hear me talk about, oh, the argument c, when really I should have talked about the parameter c.